Our scripture lesson is taken from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now there on the hillside a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. So it's kind of an interesting statistic out there in the world, which is that there were 1.8 million cosmetic surgical procedures done annually in the United States. It goes up by a couple 100,000 up or down. It's growing at a fairly significant rate. And, it's an interesting thing because it runs the gamut from the vanity procedures that we often associate with cosmetic surgery, but it also includes things that are really, really critical to a person's life, like they were in a bad car accident, and it's reconstructing, their look and really giving them their life back. So it's really interesting how cosmetic surgery runs this huge gamut, and it often starts a debate about the question of, what is natural? What's natural? What is perfecting a person? And what decision, does this, who gets to make this decision for you, on those things? Like my mother always told me that I should dye my hair. She wanted me to dye my hair. She said, you'll look younger, you should dye your hair. And I rejected the idea, saying, no, the congregation worked really hard to turn it this color, and who am I to reverse that work? But, I rejected it on the grounds of I just didn't like the idea of doing it. It felt unnatural to me. But that doesn't mean that that's the case for everyone. Other people who may choose to do it, it's perfectly fine. It's a decision that you make. You're like, no, my natural color is the color I was born with, not the color it became, or something like that. Or if you just decide to color it because you want a different color, it's, how is that different than choosing what clothes you're going to wear, or something like that, okay? So you have all of these arguments, and they all are valid. It's really up to your perception as to what is real and what is artificial. The question that we often face is, really, what is the real you? Now, when you talk about cosmetic surgery or dyeing my hair or something like that, then we're talking about the physical realm, and so much of the physical realm is simply driven by societal views of, what is beautiful or whatever, and that's not really what's important to God. But really, when we're talking about ethics and spirituality and your behavior, the question is, what is the real you? And what would it mean to improve? And what is it that we should be aspiring to? Now, this story is one of my favorite stories because it highlights these issues. You have this man who has demons, and he's clearly a societal outcast. I mean, he doesn't live among the people. He's living in the tombs. He's running around without clothes, all right, so he's not adhering to social norms. So this person is completely an outcast because of the demons that have possessed him. And then what happens is Jesus comes, and he recognizes Jesus, or at least the demons do. All right, and that's, by the way, a reminder that demons have always recognized who Jesus is. This is a recurring theme in the Gospels, is the demons know exactly who Jesus is. They simply refuse to bow down and worship him, okay? But they understand who he is. So they know who he is, but in Jesus' goodness, in being the Son of God, they see him as a tormentor, not as a potential support. And so Jesus says, who are you? And the answer becomes kind of interesting. In this, the singular and the plural kind of get mixed up. He says his name is Legion, which is a Roman military term, because a legion of Roman soldiers is 5,000 soldiers. And so the implication is that there are 5,000 demons in this person, assuming that demons adhere to Roman military structure. But, nonetheless, says that that there are so many demons, thousands of demons, and with this interplay of singular and plural, what you have is a situation where you can't tell the man from the demons who possess him. They've become indistinguishable. And this is one of the issues that happens in our lives, all right? So in this case, the person and his demons were indistinguishable. But sometimes that happens to us. Sometimes the demons that are kind of, invading our own lives, the demons that are within us, get baked in, and they become a part of our identity. And when that happens, when it gets to the point where the demons within you, the things that are driving you to do the things you shouldn't do, become a part of your identity, then relinquishing them, getting rid of them, being healed of them, actually begins to feel like you're losing a part of yourself. And that is why people become really resistant to making the kinds of changes that they need to make in their lives, because the negative things have actually become a part of who they believe they are. Now, in this story, the demons, knowing the power of Jesus and knowing that Jesus has the power to get rid of them, they beg to be allowed to inhabit a nearby herd of pigs. And Jesus says, okay. So the demons come out of the man, they enter the swine, and they appear to drive the pigs crazy. Okay? So the demons enter the pigs go nuts, they rush down the bank into the lake, and they were drowned. By the way, we presume this means the demons were drowned, although we don't really know enough about how demons work to know whether you can drown a demon or not. Don't know. But, don't know, don't care. For purposes of the story, the demons were willing to die rather than do something more obvious, like ask Jesus for healing. All right? Could the demons have somehow said, hey, Jesus, we know who you are, we know your power, could you heal us, could you free us, could you liberate us, could you turn us, could you do something other than have us go into a herd of pigs and drown ourselves? But they'd rather die as demons than avail themselves of what Jesus would have to offer. It's a reminder that demons are stubborn, and so are we. We are often really stubborn about the demons that are within us. We are often really stubborn about letting go of the bad habits, the bad impulses that we have. Now, we don't want to be self-deprecating and seeing ourselves strictly in terms of the negative, but we also shouldn't be normalizing the bad habits, the bad impulses that we have that we ought to be wanting to be rid of instead. So one of the questions that this passage lifts up for us is the idea of which detrimental habits are you actually stubbornly clinging to? I'm not talking about, minor annoying things. I'm talking about things that really are detrimental to your life, and yet you decide, hey, you know what? I can't let go of it. I can't let go of it. I actually, in some cases, like it. I actually think that somehow it's enjoyable, somehow it's fun. Which ones are hardest for you to let go of? And also, remember that in that quest to be rid of the things that are detrimental, we often don't even help one another do that. It's quite often that the people around us are not helping us in our desire to get better. See, the people look at the man, and it's kind of interesting. They found the man sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. All right? I mean, this is the most interesting part of the story, okay? They were so used to seeing him crazy that when they see him clothed in his right mind, acting like a normal person, instead of rejoicing, instead of being thrilled for the person, instead of being so happy that the person has found this healing, instead they choose to be afraid of it. Because one of the most frightening powers is, in fact, the power to change. Change is scary in a couple of ways, all right? One is, fear of the change itself, because we don't like change and we don't like the unknown, all right? Nobody does, okay? I mean, nobody really likes change. We change because we're motivated to change. We change when something better presents itself, all right? But unless something else presents itself to lure us into change, unless we have an idea of what that change is going to look like, we tend to not like change at all. Right? So we can be afraid of the change because we're really not sure what it would be like. And a second thing that we're afraid of is that power of change itself. All right? Because the power to change us is huge. And we kind of like to keep it under control because we can be afraid of what the power to change us could actually do within us. And as I was saying, we are often also unsupported in our desire to improve. We can't count on others to help. I mean, come on. Who hasn't been on a diet and had a friend offer them cake? Say, yeah, I know you're on a diet, but it's only one piece of cake. Come on, right? I know you're on a diet, but come on, it's just one piece. It's not gonna hurt. Yeah, I know your blood pressure is high, but come on, 2 slices of bacon, what difference is that gonna make, okay? I mean, we do it to others, all right? We do it to others. It happens to us. It happens all the time, all right? We are often unsupported in our desire to improve. And in fact, sometimes we don't even like it if someone helps us. Like you sit there and you say you're on a diet, you're at a birthday party, someone puts cake in front of you, is your friend gonna go, nope, you shouldn't have that. You said you were on a diet, and pull it out from in front of you, okay? I mean, that would seem kind of weird. And yet that would be the supportive thing to do if you said, hey, this is what I need to do. Not for vanity purposes, but like if your doctor said you need to lose a bunch of pounds or else you're gonna die. And if a friend said to you, well, I'm your friend, I love you, I care about you, you need to lose weight or you're gonna die, I am removing this cake from your presence. Might seem a little weird, right? So many people, and we do it to one another, won't support us in our desire to improve because at some subconscious level, even the people around us want us to stay the same because that's a part of the stability of their universe. That's a part of the stability of their world is when you are the same person that you were before. And if you change, it changes their environment. our change affects the people around us. And so for the same reasons that we are reluctant to change, the people around us are often reluctant to support us in our desire to change. But we need to surround ourselves with supportive people. We need to be surrounded with persons who would support our desire to improve and get better. Now, the people were so confused by what happened to this man that they had to explain that he'd been healed. All right. The demons were gone, and they were now seeing the real person, but it said those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. The person had been so as far deeply associated with being the demon-possessed person that when he was healed, the people didn't even know what happened. And this is often the case. We don't know what healed looks like. We are often suspicious of change. We're suspicious of healing. Is it a gimmick? Is it a trick? All right. Is it going to last? This is why we can be so reluctant to give people second chances in life. All right. They make a mistake, and then they believe themselves to be changed, believe themselves to be healed, and so many people will be reluctant to give them a second chance. Even though we are of a faith that is grounded on the idea of mercy, grounded on the idea of grace, we can be so reluctant to extend it to folks, believing that no, they didn't change. Their change isn't real. They're actually going to make the same mistakes again that they made before. And as a result, it becomes so difficult for persons with a criminal record to get a job. It can be so difficult for us to forgive others because our love of the status quo often includes preserving the bad and preserving our image of persons who've done negative things as negative people. Gets to the point where the crowd, having seen what Jesus did with that man, asks him to leave. I mean, this is one of the most ridiculous requests, all right? So the man was possessed by thousands of demons. He is healed. Instead of running around naked, living in the tombs, he is sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And the people were so unnerved, they sent him away. Now, there's a lot of conjecture as to what's going on in their mind. One of them is, don't forget what happened. Jesus managed to have the demons destroy a valuable herd of livestock. So, somebody lost their herd of swine. Okay. He disrupted the status quo. Right? The world that they knew. The world where this man was crazy and naked and living in the tombs, that was still the world they knew. And the power that Jesus showed in healing that man frightened them. And so they decide to ask Jesus to leave, which may seem absolutely crazy at this larger societal level. But I wonder if this isn't something that many of us have done on a personal level. I wonder whether we have ever been reluctant to actually let Jesus transform us, right? I mean, imagine Jesus makes this offer to you. I will heal you of all that I see needs to be healed within you. Would you take him up on that offer? Right. See, a lot of us pray for Jesus to cure us of the things we want to be cured of. But would you give Jesus the opportunity to cure you of all the things that Jesus thinks you need to be cured of? Just point blank. Because that might be really frightening. I remember a science fiction short story, and I forget who wrote it. I'd have to look it up. And I forgot who wrote it, but it was a science fiction short story from like 50, 60 years ago. And it's really simple. An alien comes to Earth and makes this offer of healing to the people, all right? And says, here you go. You can put this, delivers like these cases of patches and says, here, put the patch on and it will heal you of everything that ails you. And sure enough, some people put the patch on, and yes, a person's cancer goes into remission. Yay, the patch is working. And the story ends with them realizing that they're all getting stupid, because the aliens had perceived that it was human intelligence that was causing societal problems, that it was human intelligence that was actually causing us to go to war with one another and things like that. And so it also cured that. All right? They should have made a Black Mirror episode of that, because that's kind of a Black Mirror-y kind of storyline. All right? But without going to quite that extreme, what if Jesus wanted to cure us of things that our society actually encourages in us? What if Jesus wanted to cure us of our ambition? What if Jesus wanted to cure us of our competitiveness? What if Jesus wanted to cure us of our desire to achieve worldly success? How many of us would actually want that? All right, or be willing to be cured of it? I mean, that would be really, really difficult for us to put up with, because certainly I was raised with a lot of worldly standards of what it would mean to succeed. All right? And that was so drilled into me from the time I was a young kid that it really did become an integral part of my identity. All right? And so, sure, I would love to be cured of the bad, detrimental habits I have in my life, but what if Jesus looks at me and also says, well, you know, there are some other bad habits of yours. Like that desire you have to win and compete? I'd kind of like to cure you of that. That desire you have to make everything like perfect? I kind of like to cure you of that. All right. At a certain point, I would sit there and look at that and go, well, wait a second. Okay, Jesus, if you do, I'm going to look in the mirror and not recognize the person that I see. And that's a frightening thought. All right. But one of the things that we learn in faith is that in wanting to do things for us, Jesus is saying, but look, I can imagine the conversation in my own head. Jesus would be saying, but look, a lot of those things would actually allow you to experience life with greater humanity, would actually allow you to experience life with greater connection to other people, all right? And it would allow us to understand that when it comes to that question that I asked at the beginning of the sermon, that question about what is real, what is authentic, it's remembering that in Christ, we're being told, in God, that our best self is when we're at our most human. Right? I really don't like that phrase. I've mentioned this a few times. I don't like it when people make a mistake and say, I'm only human, because I think that lowers the bar. All right? Yes, as humans, we will make mistakes because we are imperfect. We are not God. But to be fully human might be so different that it might be frightening. To be fully human might be so different that it would almost be unrecognizable to us. Think about what it would be to be your most human. What would those qualities be? All right? I think the qualities that come to mind if I say, what does it mean to be maximally human? I start thinking of words like empathy, compassion, care, love, peace. All right? These are all the words that come to mind when I start saying, what would it mean to be more human? What would be elevated in order to be more human? What doesn't come to mind are words like competitive, successful, winning. All right? Those are not the words that come to mind when I think about what it would be to be my most human self. But when we're asking God to work within us, shouldn't we be asking God to make us our most human selves? That as we were created in the image of God, asking God to move us closer to that image. Because that is the person God intended us to be. That is our natural self. Our natural self is the person God intended to be, and our natural self was created in the image of God. And so, rather than pray for the change we want, could we have the courage to ask God for the change God wants? Amen.